His brothers, what they did to him is not his fault. The second category is when people put you in fitna. Allah says, you put yourselves in fitna. The issue is, you shouldn't be taking this up with me, you should take this up with the government, you should take this up with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Kinds of fitna that Allah talks about in the Quran. One kind is from Allah Himself. And to give you, He talks about this in many ways, but one of the ways that fitna happens in this dunya. By the way, there's a fitna in this dunya, and there's also a fitna in the akhirah. يَوْمَ هُمْ عَلَى النَّارِ يُفْتَنُونَ. The day on which they are going to be put in fitna on the fire. That's on Judgment Day. They're going to be in fitna. What does that mean? Just like the fire burns deep inside the metal and melts the impurities, that's how Allah takes the people of Jahannam and burns them deep inside. And He uses the word fitna for that on Judgment Day. But I'm not talking about akhirah. In terms of this dunya, three kinds of fitna. And the first of them is when Allah puts somebody in fitna. The easiest example of that for you to remember is what Allah says about Musa alayhi salam. When Musa alayhi salam spoke with him on the mountain, Allah told him, وَفَتَنَّاكَ فُتُونَ. We tested you multiple times. We put you in fitna multiple times. When he was born, the order was to kill all the babies. And he was, even as a baby, he was put in fitna. He was in a fitna when he was in the basket that could have drowned. He was in a fitna when he was being raised in the house of Fir'aun. He was in a fitna when he had to hide his mother's true identity. He was in a fitna when he had to escape Egypt. He was in a fitna when he couldn't go back to Egypt and when he almost died of dehydration. He was in a, all of these were fitna that he went through, all of these difficult tests that he went through. And Allah describes how Musa alayhi salam was put through fitna. So you would think Allah does this for believers, but Allah also mentions this for Fir'aun. وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا آلَ فِرْعَوْنَ. We put the people of Fir'aun and the lineage, the descendants of Fir'aun also in fitna. So now we're learning when Allah executes a fitna, He doesn't just do this for believers and doesn't just do this for disbelievers, it's for everybody. Anybody can be put through fitna. And that is why we find in the Quran, فِتْنَتُكْ تُصِيبُهَا مَنْ تَشَاءُ تُصِيبُ بِهَا مَنْ تَشَاءُ إِنْ هِيَ إِلَّا فِتْنَتُكْ تُصِيبُ بِهَا مَنْ تَشَاءُ. Musa alayhi salam even told Allah at one point, this is your fitna, you can strike with your fitna whoever you want. You can strike with your fitna whoever you want. So Muslims don't have a simplistic understanding of difficulties or tests or trials in this life. So we don't say, how come good people are having difficult time and how come bad people are having a good time? I don't get it. People who say that must not have studied the Quran. People who say that would not have learned لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Because Allah makes this clear from the very beginning. That fitna will happen and وَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا تُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. Like you should be afraid of a fitna that will not just strike the people who do wrong, Allah says. So fitna doesn't just happen to people that are bad or people who do wrong. Fitna happens to everybody. And sometimes some people's crime, many people have to pay the price. At least in this world it looks like that. Some people commit a crime and everybody has to pay the price, right? And that is the nature of fitna. Allah Azza wa Jal creates fitna in many, many ways. And some of those fitnas seem very drastically unfair. Like recently here, I was telling the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, and what happened to Yusuf alayhi salam from the beginning of his life is unfair. His brothers, what they did to him is not his fault. So they put him in fitna. But now, one category was when Allah puts you in fitna. Okay, let's talk about the second category. The second category is when people put you in fitna. When people put you, like إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَتَنُوا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Like رَبَّنَا لَا تَجْعَلْنَا فِتْنَةً لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. When people put you in difficulty, when people persecute believers, when people attack believers, when people wrong, when people oppress other people, that's the second kind of fitna Allah describes in the Quran. People that commit crimes against others are putting them in fitna. People that are torturing, persecuting, murdering, killing, they're putting other people in fitna. People that are abusing others are putting people in fitna. This is another category. So now there's two different categories. There's the fitna Allah puts you in, there's the fitna people put you in. And then there's the third category. The fitna I put myself in. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ فَتَنْتُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. Allah says, you put yourselves in fitna. You threw yourselves into fitnah. So now we've got three. And we need to understand how the three of these work. There's the fitnah from Allah. There's the fitnah from bad people. And by the way, it's not just bad people. It's not just, I should have qualified, it's not just bad people. Allah says, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ fitnah. Even your children are a fitnah. So your children are putting you in fitnah. So it's not just kuffar that are putting you in fitnah, the enemies of Allah that are putting you in fitnah. The baby that you love, the children that you love, the daughter that you're excited to get married, get her married off, and her wedding's happening in a couple of weeks, and Allah is calling that a fitnah too. Right? So fitnah comes from Allah, fitnah comes from people, and then fitnah comes from within myself.